The best team always wins? Bullshit! Sports are almost as cruel as the YouTube algorithm, and sometimes the best team at the tournament doesn't lift the trophy at the end. These are the top 10 teams that should have won the World Cup. Number 10, Belgium 2018. The most recent entry in the list, Belgium's golden generation went into the 2018 World Cup as the top-ranked team in the world. With a star-studded side headlined by De Bruyne and Hazard, the Red Devils looked to lift their very first World Cup. It was not to be, however, as they were defeated by an extremely defensive France side in the semi-final despite playing the better football. France's strategy of setting and lump it down the right wing and hoping Mbappe can do something proved to be enough on the night to beat a frustrated Belgian side, with keeper Courtois claiming the French played anti-football. Eden Hazard later claimed that he preferred to lose with Belgium than to win with France. Strong words from the players who ultimately didn't manage to win a single major international tournament despite the amazing pool of talent that Belgian team had. Number 9, Argentina 1994. A World Cup of two portions. The first two games sees the revival of a Maradona past his best, rolling back the years and tearing teams apart, all while some claimed he looked like a man possessed. The Argentine great instilled fear in his opponents, and it seemed like no one could catch him. Then he got caught. Not on the pitch, but for his, illegal supplements off of it. Maradona had a long history of addiction to a certain white powder not found at your local supermarket. I'd hope. After their second game, he was led off the pitch by a nurse and taken away for testing due to suspicion. Maradona was sent home in disgrace after being found guilty of Efferdyne doping. At first, the Argentine FA tried to pin the blame on nasal spray, although later Maradona claimed the banned substance was in the energy drink Rip Fuel. Whether it was accidental or a deliberate attempt to cheat or a cover-up for a greater problem, the result was that Maradona was banned from the tournament. Now without their star man, the Argentinians rather petered out, losing to Romania in the round of 16. We'll never know how it could have gone had Maradona not been found guilty, but they certainly stopped being a threat to win the tournament at the very moment he was sent away. Number 8, Netherlands 1990. The reigning 1988 European champions ended up being one of the worst performing teams on the list, but it certainly wasn't due to a lack of talent. On paper, this team should have blown everyone else at the tournament away, headlined by 4 of the greatest players in the world at the time: Koeman, Rijkaard, Gullit and Van Basten, with the latter 3 being the core of AC Milan, the best club team in the world at that moment. Considering how many teams are carried by their one of the best in the world caliber players, surely a team with 4 World 11 candidates surrounded by other very talented players were a surefire bet to win the World Cup. So what went wrong? Well, a lot. A revolt against their coach before the tournament led to a player vote on who should be the new coach. Cruyff won the vote but was vetoed on the grounds of being too inexperienced, and the job was awarded to Leo Beenhakker. Sure. Further down the line, the players were booked into a castle for preparation and given a strict training regimen in a period where most of them were hoping to recover from the regular season. It was during this period where the team seemed to break entirely, with star players looking very fatigued before the start of the tournament. There was also clear rifts in the team and an overall poor atmosphere in the dressing room. Nothing looked right about this Dutch side, who never got out of first gear in the competition, losing to Germany after Rijkaard infamously spat at Voller. A great example of how dysfunction can overcome any level of talent. Number 7, England 1970. In 1966, England won the World Cup. Now, if you grew up in Britain, you've probably never heard this. It certainly hasn't found a way to be mentioned in virtually every single programme to do with the World Cup. It doesn't get mentioned over and over and over and over. It didn't even go in the ball. Copium all you want, England fans, but your winning goal did not cross the line. Anyways, England showed up to the 1970 World Cup as the holders and one of the favourites. If anything, the 1970 side were even better than the side of 66, with Ball, Peters, Hurst, Moore and Banks all at their peaks. England played eventual winners Brazil early in the tournament and were strong in defeat, going on to qualify and face West Germany in the quarter-finals. Here they were undone by illness of star goalkeeper Gordon Banks, with stand-in Bonetti at fault for 2 of Germany's 3 goals. This caused the only real opposition for the imperious Brazilian side to be knocked out before time, depriving us all of the chance of seeing what would have happened if the 2 best teams had faced off in the final. As it was, Brazil marched on to World Cup glory, but we can always wonder how things might have gone had Banks not fallen ill. Number 6, France 2006.
Bon anniversaire!
Many of you remember that headbutt in the final and sadly forget the fantastic swan song that tournament provided for French star Zinedine Zidane. By far the best player at the tournament, the midfielder put on classic performances, dominating games and looking like a man playing with boys against a star-studded team like Brazil. Fun fact, I was at that game, and I will never forget Zidane running rings around all these 90-rated FIFA players my young mind assumed were insanely good. On the night, there was only one king. The team also boasted other great players like Thuram, Vieira, and the cutting edge of Hungary up front. Sadly, the final was ruined by a moment of madness from Zidane, headbutting Maserati and being rightfully sent off. France went on to lose on penalties, in what stands as a pretty good case of the best team not winning the tournament. Yes, Italy's defence were great, but France were probably the best side there. Number 5, Netherlands, 1978. The Netherlands went into the 1978 tournament as one of the strong favourites, stacked with top talents like Neeskens, Rensenbrink, Rep, Hahn and Krol. The Dutch put on some magnificent displays of total football on their way to the final, before ultimately losing to Argentina. Despite dominating large parts of that final, the Argentine forward Kempes proved the difference maker as the host won in extra time. Argentina were probably the best side at that tournament, but we are missing one key factor. The best player in the world at that moment, Johan Cruyff, wasn't even at the tournament. Cruyff was the subject of an attempted kidnapping, with he and his family tied up and held at gunpoint in their home. Afterwards, Cruyff decided to take a step back from football, including missing that World Cup. We mentioned before how the best player in the world usually lifts a team to greatness. Of course, we can never know if the 1978 Netherlands team would have won it with Cruyff, but given they came so close without him, it's easy to imagine that the all-time great might have made the difference. Number 4, Austria, 1934. Austria's Wunder team had gone 16 games unbeaten in the run-up to the 1934 World Cup and were coasting through the tournament, beating France and Hungary on the way to a semi-final versus host nation Italy. They lost the game 1-0 due to what is described as a suspicious refereeing decision in favour of the Italians. Now, get this, the ref also took control of the final, where Italy were the benefactors of further suspicious refereeing decisions. Now, I'm not saying that Mussolini either bribed or intimidated the ref in order to rig the tournament. I'm just saying that this is exactly what would have happened had Mussolini bribed or intimidated the ref in order to rig the tournament. Moving on. Number 3, Brazil 1982. Zico and Socrates headlined what many consider to be the best Brazilian team of all time, with the only real weakness being the centre-backs and the striker. They went into the 1982 World Cup as clear favourites, playing well in the early stages before losing one of the all-time great World Cup games versus Italy. Italian striker Rossi, who was facing questions in the Italian press as to if he should even have been starting the game as he'd been poor so far in the tournament, put on a showcase of clinical finishing to score a hat-trick and prove the age-old adage correct. Form is temporary and class is permanent. Rossi proved the difference as Brazil were knocked out by 3-2 in the defeat. It was seen as a travesty by many that Brazil would not go on to win this World Cup, but in a one-off game there are no guarantees. Strange things happen and even the best teams can lose. Our top 2 picks certainly embody that. Number 2, Hungary 1954. One of the best national sides of all time. The Hungarians of the 50s were a terrifying opponent for anybody. Many see them as the team that invented modern football, scoring goals for fun against some of the world's best teams. Superstars like Puskas, Kokshis, and Kuti? God, I'm so sorry, Hungary. Saw them demolishing everyone in their path, scoring an astonishing 25 goals in 4 games on their road to the final. In those 4 games, they'd already beaten their final opponents, West Germany, but the coach of Germany had rested some key players. The final was a different game, with the well-organised Germans also boasting a technological advantage. A pitch in poor conditions saw the players wear boots with the brand new screw-in studs, allowing them longer studs and therefore better footing. This and the huge pro-German crowd at the game undoubtedly contributed to Germany's unlikely 3-2 victory over the rampant Hungarians. Honourable mentions: 1986 Denmark. A fantastic attacking football side featuring the Barca star Michael Laudrup, Denmark played brilliantly until they were smashed 5-1 by Spain in the round of 16. Portugal in 1966 were a strong team featuring the absolute world star Eusebio up front that could have gone the whole way but were knocked out by eventual winner England in the semi-final. They only failed to make the list because West Germany were probably the deserved winners, who incidentally also get a mention. The ball didn't go in. The 1982 France side, headlined by everyone's favourite, definitely not corrupt FIFA official Michel Platini, were cruelly knocked out in more ways than one, in an incident that has become infamous as the Schumacher assault. The German goalkeeper wiped out a French forward in a foul that should have resulted in a penalty and probably a red card for the German keeper. Unfortunately for France, neither occurred and they ended up losing the game on a shootout, with ironically the German goalkeeper being the hero. And finally, for our list outside of the top 1, 2022 Morocco were as good as any other team in the tournament, with Hakimi and Ziyech's combination play down the right hand side and Amrabat's imperious defensive midfield displays being a huge factor in why Morocco nearly shocked the world. And number 1, Netherlands 1974. Now my Jesus, Wat liepen ze weer te dweilen. Remember how I said that Dutch side in 78 would have won if Cruyff had been there? Well, in 74, Cruyff was there, and oh boy should they have won. Coming from the revolution Dutch football provided in 1969 onwards, the Oranje were one of the greatest sides ever, led by one of the greatest players ever. There are many theories as to how the hell they didn't win the final despite being the better team. They scored too early. Germany got a soft penalty that got them back into it. The Dutch thought they'd already won and got arrogant. The Germans' never say die attitude led them to keep fighting. The Dutch created many chances, but the ball just wouldn't go in. Any number of explanations get thrown around, but what isn't really in doubt here is that the better team lost. What also can't really be doubted is that when people think of the 74 World Cup, and really this era of football, it's the Ajax core of this Dutch side that springs to mind. Cruyff himself claimed that while Germany won the trophy, the Dutch won the World Cup as they are the side that everybody remembers, overthrowing the turgid Italian defensive style of Catenaccio with arguably the biggest tactical revolution of football history. The attacking, almost chaotic total football ran riot and should have given the Netherlands their first World Cup. Many strong teams and 3 final appearances later, it's incredible to think they somehow still haven't won a World Cup despite being one of the tournament's most consistent strong performers. The ultimate bridesmaid nation of the World Cup, the 1974 Dutch side, are the best team not to have won it. And that's our list. Did we miss anyone? Do you disagree with the order? How did the Germans keep finding ways to beat superior opposition? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to join the clan, and seriously, how did the Germans do it?